A warm welcome to everyone. My name is Dr. Cheryl Kasdorf, and this presentation is about healing from nature. It's 5 powerful ways to heal using nature. We're going to use the elements of nature. And what really prompted me to do this was that when we all started to be sheltering in place, I was on my computer a lot. I had a lot of seminars that were done through Zoom. I was sitting in front of my computer hour after hour. And I thought it was just all the sitting, but when I would get up, I was stiff. My joints were stiff, and it took me a while to get going. Well, when I started looking at what I was doing, I realized that it wasn't only the sitting, and it wasn't only the exposure to the screen, it was that I was not getting outside and being grounded enough. Now, there is a device that I have that I had forgot about and I wasn't using, and so I pulled it out, and it grounds me while I sit at the computer. Well, I started grounding myself, which means I was connecting my body, my skin, through cords, through my electrical system into the ground, in the earth. So I had a direct electrical connection to the earth. And then I was getting electrons from the earth. And lo and behold, when I started doing that, my joint pain went away. I didn't have any stiffness, even if I sat for a whole day at a seminar. So this is very powerful, what we can do when we get back to nature. You know, our ancestors were very connected to nature. But then as we started getting civilized, we built shelters, right? We were protecting ourselves from the elements, but in the meantime, we started insulating ourselves from nature. We didn't, putting on shoes, and especially not natural ones, whether they had rubber soles or plastic, that would insulate us from nature. Well, it was wonderful to have civilization. You know, we could live in houses and protect ourselves, but then we had to pipe in water. And water piped in through straight lines and square angles, it loses its vitality. And then on top of that, you know, we're going from house to car to work to car to different places, and we're just not out in the sun very much. The sun is a powerful element of our physiology. In addition, when we get stressed, we tend to have different breathing patterns. And so a lot of times, there's a lot of us that end up being mouth breathers. That totally messes our physiology. So even when I'm speaking now, my intention is I'm breathing through my nose as I'm breathing out through my mouth as I'm speaking. Nose breathing is something that we've almost lost in our society. Just look at yourself and look at people around you. And finally, when we've gotten so stressed, we get in our heads, and everything is mental, and we've lost our connection with our true essence. And I'll go into how we can, with a simple procedure, start to reconnect with that. This is the pickle we've gotten ourselves in. You know, we've gotten away from nature, and it turns out that nature has powerful elements that continue to support us. And when we divorce ourselves from nature, we're not getting that. And too often, when we want to heal naturally, we look for an herb or a vitamin to see how we can boost our energy, when a big part of the problem is our disconnection from nature. Let's look at the earth. The earth actually collects electrons. It gets it from the sun, from a certain atmosphere level, and then in lightning, electrons are transferred to the earth. It turns out that we get nutrition from the electrons from the earth when we're connected to the earth. Again, if we're divorced from it, we're losing that kind of nutrition. What the electrons do in our body is they neutralize the free radicals, which are oxidants in our body. So the electrons from the earth act as natural antioxidants, and they also act as an anti-inflammatory. So this is why my joints didn't hurt anymore once I started grounding to the earth. In addition, grounding to the earth can boost our mood. There's a study that showed that connecting to the earth for 1 hour compared to just relaxing for 1 hour, there were significant benefits when you connected to the earth for 1 hour, beyond just the relaxation effect. It's that powerful. So, you know, with our shoes that are insulating us, with our houses that have, you know, carpets, and we're, you know, we don't have dirt floors anymore. Maybe it's a good thing, but it's important to reconnect with nature. So I know you're all watching this right now, but at your first opportunity, and think of it right now, think of when that can be. You can go outside and put your feet on the earth, your bare feet. Now, an ideal thing would be to walk in wet grass or on the beach, you know, in the wet sand. If that's not available, just plain earth or a rock will do. In fact, concrete, because it's basically made out of rocks, that will work too, as long as it's not been sealed or somehow sealed off from the earth. So simply by putting our feet on the earth, I decided to spend my lunchtime sitting in my chair on the porch with my bare feet connected to the concrete so that I could ground. I'm asking you now, is there some time you can think of that you can ground to the earth? What can you fit in your schedule, or what other time can you make sure that you ground to the earth? Just even 30 minutes can have a huge benefit on your mood. Now, once we're connected to the earth again, let's look at what happens when we pipe in water from pipes that are straight lines and right angles. Well, my research into this began with a man named Victor Schauberger. I started researching him, and he totally understood nature's principles, water in nature, how it flows. He had some projects where he was actually able to, because he understood water flows, float logs down the river for the Austrian country. He understood it. He was concerned at that time in the 1800s that cities were being built and people were losing the vitality of the water because it was being piped in. Now he decided that, well, if that's what we're doing with cities, maybe he could design a structure, something that would take the water and make it move as it does move in nature and restructure the water. Now I started talking about structure of water. Water in our bodies has a very particular configuration. All the proteins, all the DNA, which is a protein, proteins have very important functions in the body. They are enzymes, they create structure, there are genetic material, and all these cellular components are actually surrounded by a kind of water that has a particular structure. And that water then supports the shape of the proteins, because a lot of the protein action is when it changes shape, it has its function. Therefore, the shape of water is essential to the functioning of the human body. There were actually 3 Nobel Prizes given for research showing the importance of water, the shape of water, into the functioning of the human body. This is an important area of research. We're born with all the water in our body supporting all the structures, but as we're exposed to toxins, as we drink water that's not from nature, some of that water loses its structure. And with research, they found that instead of 36 molecules supporting a DNA, they found places where there's only 35 molecules. And that's associated with cells that don't function right. And it's even been shown to be a part of cancerous cells. So structured water is this important in our body. And unless you live next to a mountain stream where you can just put your cup in the water and drink it or bathe in the water, it's really hard to find pure structured water. Water is in nature. Now, plants do structure water too, and we can get a little bit that way. And snowflakes are structured water. But my solution is that I found that locally, there was somebody who was making these water structuring units like Victor Schauberger had designed. And that's one thing I offer to my patients and my clients, because I don't know of any other way to easily create structured water as in nature, except through these units. And I emphasize how important it is for our body's proper functioning. There's nothing like taking a shower in structured water. I mean, when I first got my water structuring units, it was a whole different feel. My skin is soft after I shower, where before it actually had been dried out by showering. I just cannot believe how much my skin hydrates, because when you have water as in nature, it has a lower surface tension than water that you get out of the tap. That lower surface tension is because of the arrangement of the atoms in the water, and they can then penetrate into the cells. So that's why my skin is soft after I bathe in structured water, but also that is why when I drink structured water, it gets into my cells. I used to be drinking water and maybe be not wanting to drink it so much because I would have to pee right away. Drinking structured water changed that, because the water goes into my cells first instead of going straight through my tract into the kidneys and to be eliminated right away. I can't say enough about structured water because it's water as in nature. And I have whole other information which goes into more detail about why structured water and the benefits and how we can do that. Once we have connected to the earth and we're drinking and bathing in water as it appears in nature, then we tackle the issue of getting outside. Now, outside in the sun, it depends on the time of year, the time of day, your climate, but the sun really is our friend. That's where the earth and all living beings on it get our primal energy. Our bodies are designed to use the sunlight for many things. Now, I know everybody hears, stay out of the sun because you're going to get cancer, or stay out of the sun because you're going to get wrinkles. Well, the connection between sunlight and cancer is a very convoluted one, because sun exposure will give us something called actinic keratosis, which can progress to a mild form of cancer, which is easily treated. But on the other hand, the most serious kind of skin cancer, melanoma, is associated with very little exposure to sunlight. And part of the issue with skin cancer is researchers have found that it has more to do with your essential fatty acid levels, your antioxidant levels, your B vitamin levels, and things like that, instead of the amount of exposure you get to the sun. In fact, like I said, being exposed to sunlight helps to protect you from melanoma, the most dangerous kind. And in addition, it is a lot of the other environmental influences that are man-made, like the electromagnetic fields and pollution, that has more of an impact on the body, which results in the creation of cancer. So I wouldn't make the sun the bad guy totally for cancer, and especially skin cancer. In fact, like I said, it can be protective. And on top of that, we are designed to make vitamin D from sunlight. Now, in certain latitudes, it's only at certain times of the year, but because it is a fat-soluble vitamin, we can store it up. In addition, sunlight will enhance the mood. You've heard about SAD, seasonal affective disorder. When we don't get enough sunlight, we don't make enough of those feel-good neurotransmitters and hormones. And so sometimes just even getting out in the sun in the winter can make a big effect. The sun also regulates a hormone for sleep called melatonin. So it's important to get your exposure to the sunlight at the proper time of day and not have artificial light, which is simulating the sunlight at night, because that'll mess up your total body rhythms. Sunlight has been also shown to regulate body temperature and relieve fibromyalgia pain. So a medicinal dose of the sun can be very useful. You always want to avoid any possibility of getting a sunburn. So sometimes that's trial and error, but and you know that the strongest sunlight is like between 10 and 2 in the day. Well, in Arizona, in the summer, you don't want to be out at that time anyway. But you can receive nourishment from the sun with all those benefits that I mentioned. And with being judicious about it, getting your sunlight exposure at the proper times, and covering up when you don't want to get exposed, you can avoid a sunburn. The sun really is our friend, and we're designed to get sunlight, and that sunlight will nourish us. Now moving on to air. This is the fourth element. As I said before, when we get stressed, there is a lot of mouth breathing. And in fact, I've got some statistics about this. There are about 80% of the population in the United States does not breathe correctly. And 50% actually has actually breathed through their mouth. There can be different problems with breathing, but definitely closing your mouth and breathing through your nose is something that's going to change your physiology if you're not already doing it. Let's see, the statistics. The consequences of pure breathing can be seen in just about any body system. Like in the cardiovascular system, you can get palpitations, pain in the chest, cold hands and feet, racing heartbeat, just by not breathing right. For the nervous system, you can get headaches, dizziness, and tingling in your extremities, not from breathing right. With a habitual pattern of overbreathing, you get regular sighing, yawning, shortness of breath, coughing, tightness of the chest, sniffling, and even allergies can be related to mouth breathing. In your muscles, sometimes you can get cramps, or muscle pains, or stiffness, just not from breathing right. In your digestive system, you can get difficulty swallowing, a dry mouth and throat, acid reflux, heartburn, belching, all these kind of things. You think of as being a digestive problem, but it can actually be from not breathing correctly. In general, weakness, exhaustion, impaired memory, poor concentration, disturbed sleep, nightmares can all be from improper breathing. James Nestor published a book recently called Breathe, and in it he says, how we breathe is as important as how much exercise we get and what foods we eat. Now, I know when we think about being healthy, the go-to things are diet and exercise, right? Well, in the research that he did for his book, he has tons of evidence that breathing correctly is as important as those two things. If you think about it, when you're breathing through the nose, it filters the air. It warms it. If it's cold, it treats it. But actually, that breathing through our nose triggers hormones, and it will lower our blood pressure. In addition, it helps to regulate the heart rate. And by breathing through your nose instead of your mouth, it actually avoids tooth decay, because there's that mouth breathing sets up some imbalances in your mouth that promotes tooth decay. Now, the issue is, breathing through your nose is so important. And so many people say, well, my nose is stuffed up. I can't breathe through my nose. The thing is, breathing through your nose facilitates more breathing through your nose. So it's a positive loop. And when you don't breathe through your nose, it makes it harder to breathe through your nose. So there is a strategy to reverse if your nose is stuffed up. And this can even help when you have a cold. This comes from Butecchio. And what it is they found that by holding your breath, you actually start to change the physiology in your nose, where it starts to open up and you can breathe better. By doing this particular exercise repeatedly, you can change the way your nose operates and actually be able to breathe better through it. Now, it's a complicated issue, and you need to seek medical advice to get the final answer on this. But I'm going to ask you to try this little exercise with me and see if you have a stuffed up nose, if it makes a difference. And if not, just to have it ingrained in your body so that, maybe when you do, the next time you do have a stuffed up nose, you can try it. It's again, as I said, it's from Butecchio Breathing, and it's about how to unblock your nose. I'm going to explain the steps first, and then we'll do it together. The first thing you do is you sit up straight, and then what we're going to do is take a breath through our nose, if possible, and out through the nose. Now, if it's really stuffed up, you can kind of cheat by taking a breath kind of through the corner of your mouth. What we're going to do together is pinch the nose with our fingers and hold our breath for as long as possible. And to help distract it, we're going to nod our head back and forth and just gently move around. We're going to hold our breath until there's a strong desire to breathe. And, of course, don't want you to pass out, right? But see how long you can hold it before there is that strong desire that you need to breathe. When you do need to breathe in, let go of your nose, breathe in through your nose as much as you can. And then, gently out through your mouth, and then, out through your nose. And as much as possible, do it gently and let it be regulated. I don't want you to be gasping for air. It's going to set up the process of being able to breathe through your nose better. As I mentioned before, you can repeat this after your breathing has returned to normal, if your nose is particularly stuffy. So let's do this together. Sit up straight, and I'm going to be talking you through it, so I'm not going to be doing it perfectly, but I'm going to ask you to follow my steps. Now, take a small breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Pinch your nose with your fingers and hold your breath. Keep your mouth closed. Nod back and forth. Now, you may go longer than me or less than me, but when you have to, breathe in through your nose gently and out through your nose. Has that changed your breathing at all? Mine feels a little different, actually. This is an exercise you can have in your back pocket that you can use in this kind of situation. In general, to be aware of how you're breathing, as much as possible, keep your mouth shut. So it doesn't work when I'm talking, right? But when I'm talking, it's helpful to breathe in through my nose as I talk out through my mouth. As much as possible, keep your breathing calm and regulated when at rest. You might be aware of it for a while. If you find yourself sighing, close your mouth and don't do it through your mouth. You know, so that can be a natural reflex, but that is something that you can train yourself to stop doing. At night, here's something that you might want to try, and that is to get yourself a little bit of tape, and just put a piece right here and tape your lips shut. Now, this is not going to, you know, suffocate you at all if you can't breathe through your nose, but it's going to show you if you switch to mouth breathing at some point at night, because the tape is going to pop open and you're going to be probably waking up from that action. But I did that for quite a few nights just to see what happened, and it was interesting that there were times when I did open my mouth. And so this was a gentle reminder to keep my mouth closed, especially when sleeping. In general, just shut your mouth, breathe through your nose. There's a lot more to this again, and I will have a course about breathing. It can be very helpful. So far we've had earth, putting your feet on the earth, whether it's grass, the ground, wet, sand. Next was water. In water in nature, which the best way I know is water training it. Sun, don't be afraid of the sun without getting sunburned, because there's so many benefits from the sunlight. Air, which was breathing through your nose, gently, deeply into your abdomen. The last element isn't necessarily about elimination, but it's one that Greeks use, which is ether. Ether is pure essence. Ether is it was the gods that is the gods breathe. So it was the rest. Also our conscious awareness, our true essence. So installation in our society. So many of us are still in our heads. We're focused on our experience. We have unconscious things that take us in obsessive thought. They circle all these other, and are things like judgments, criticisms. No wonder we're suffering. But if we connect with our true essence, we can have a different perspective on these thoughts. I have a little game, a little exercise that I'm asking you to do, and it's based on the idea that we have a choice where we put our attention. So much of our day is spent in unconscious thinking. But if we take a moment and step back, we can actually watch what's going through our awareness, what's going through our mind. We watch it, then we realize that we don't have to engage it, we don't have to believe it. And in fact, by watching it, instead of letting these thoughts and feelings go by themselves unconscious, by stepping back and being conscious of them, we actually can start to have control over our lives. And the thoughts and feelings don't have control over us. We're able to take back our power. When we realize that they don't have any power to affect us, then we experience some degree of freedom, some liberty in our lives, because then we can choose where we put our awareness. And we can reconnect with that true essence, which is beyond thoughts, once we start watching the thoughts and not engaging them. So would you like to do a little practice of this? This is very important, even though it is something that is maybe a little more out there, or a little more, who thinks of this in terms of health. But you can imagine, with stress being the #1 reason that people come to the doctor, these negative thoughts, this thinking patterns, the worry, the anxiety, that has a toll, it takes a toll on our health. So this is another very important way to reconnect with nature, reconnect with our true essence. That again is right there for us. We don't have to buy anything to actually reconnect with that. So in order to stop suffering, we disconnect from our thoughts. So let's just do a little exercise. And we know that we can look at the sky. In the sky, I can see clouds, I can see the sun. At night, I can see the stars, maybe the moon. All these things are in the sky, but I know that the sky contains them. In that same way, we have an awareness. Our mind is a certain kind of awareness. And in our awareness, there can be thoughts and feelings and memories and sensations. It can be body sensations. It can be, the flow of the air. It can be sounds. All of these things are floating through our awareness, no different than clouds through the sky, or the sun is in the sky, or we see a rainbow in the sky. We can watch everything that's going through our awareness and know that the background is the sky. So let's practice this for a moment. I'm going to simply have you close your eyes and watch what's going through your awareness. I'm going to talk you through it so you're not just kind of left in limbo, but simply sit back and relax, and now close your eyes. Be aware of what's flowing through your awareness. Of course, my voice is there. But as you make distance from what's in your mind, just watch it. Again, it can be a memory, a sensation, a projection to the future. Just watch what is going through your awareness. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to just watch. Continue to watch what's going through your awareness. But now open your eyes. Consider what you discovered. Most people tell me that they realize that when they start watching what's going through their awareness, it tends to slow down. Now, there's been research that shows that the average person has 90,000 thoughts a day. Well, since there's only 84,000 seconds in a day, that's got to be more than one a second. When you start watching your thoughts, most people report that there's less than one a second. The mind naturally quiets by doing this. In fact, sometimes there are gaps between the thoughts. Now, you don't have to reach for the next thought, because your true essence is what's in between thoughts. It's in the gaps. Like the gaps between the clouds is where you see the sky. Most people report that it was easy to do. This is natural. We can easily, naturally watch what's going through our awareness. And when I've done this with groups, people are surprised that, they can have colors, they can have flashes of memories, but they can still watch it and be aware of that awareness of that is the background that is beyond the thoughts. Now we're going to do this one more time, and I'm going to ask you to see if you can notice the context that these thoughts are moving through. Again, it's noticing the sky, even though there are clouds in it. Noticing the sky, even though there's a rainbow in it. Noticing the sky, even though there are stars in it. So let's close our eyes again, and I'll talk you through this a little bit. Rest back and just be aware of what's flowing through. And just let it go. You're not trying to stop anything. You're not trying to avoid anything. You're not efforting at all. Just let whatever be there, let it be there. Just notice what is there. What is there, and let it keep going. Now, a lot of people notice that one thought is replaced by another. That's great. Just let them flow through. Now I'm going to give you another 30 seconds to just watch and notice where thoughts come from, where they go to, if there's space, if you have any control over them coming. Okay, another 30 seconds to just purely observe what's going through your awareness. Now go ahead and gently open your eyes and continue to watch what's going through your mind. Was that still easy to do? Yeah, it's natural to be able to watch this. You know, we can be alert and relaxed while we're watching what's going through our mind. So people, when I've done this in groups before, they say that, you know, a thought just will arise. They have no control over it arising, but then it'll just go again. That's simply letting the thoughts flow through. Again, when I've done this with people, they've reported that sometimes there can be spaces between the thoughts, and it's very relaxing. It's very peaceful in that space. And if you're able to notice the context of those thoughts, that is also peaceful and relaxing. It's the bigger picture. It's the sky. It's the sky that holds everything. And once we start connecting with that, we're connecting with our true essence. Now, this can be a lifelong practice, and I've just briefly introduced you to it right now. However, I encourage you to continue to watch what's going through your mind. You don't have to have your eyes closed. You can do it with your eyes open. Because when we become aware of those unconscious thinking patterns, when we become aware of those unconscious thoughts, we make them conscious. And therefore, we have the power to choose. We have the power to choose where to put our attention. And we don't have to put our attention on those thoughts. We can connect with that pure essence, which is our true being. That takes a bit more practice, but know that there is something beyond those thoughts. And if you don't engage thoughts, then you're starting to connect with that which is beyond the thoughts. Now, again, there's much more to this. I have other courses and other practices that develop this ability to connect with our true essence. In general, when we connect with the healing powers of nature, when we connect with the earth, we get electrical nutrition. When we connect with water, we get true hydration and structuring, supporting everything in our body. When we connect with the sunlight, we're again getting hormones and neurotransmitters and vitamin D production. We're being nourished by the sun. When we connect to the air, the earth, by breathing through our nose, the way our physiology is designed, then we're actually changing the way our body functions. It's more as it should be. When we connect with our true essence, we're being nourished by that to let go of anything that does not serve our health. When we connect in these ways, when we reconnect to nature, I actually see that there is much less other interventions we need in our health. And in fact, if you are on another program for your health, it will make that even more effective. So that's a very good reason to continue to connect with nature in these ways. In a way, this is how we're meant to live. This is the way our ancestors lived, in this kind of connection to nature. But by reconnecting to that, we actually have the byproduct of more vitality, just because this is the way that we were wired and the way we were designed to work. When we reconnect with nature in these ways, I've just given you a taste of it. I asked you to find a time when you're going to go out and put your bare feet on the earth or on damp sand, to figure out when you can get some sunlight without getting sunburnt or heat stroke in the summer, to connect with water as in nature, and if necessary, get a natural action water unit, to stop breathing through your mouth and breathe through your nose. And there's a few strategies for that. To connect with our true nature by noticing what's flowing through our awareness and not engaging it. I've asked you to do these, and it can be overwhelming. So just pick one. Just pick one that you're going to do after you finish listening to this, after you finish watching this. Just pick one. And then gradually you can add in the others. Now I've got other courses which will go into more depth with this. And I encourage you to look at the resources here where you can see what your next step is for reconnecting with nature, so that you can have that powerful support as survivors is lived. Right now, I'm going to see if there are any questions that you have. If you want to just raise your hand and go ahead and put it in the chat box. You can put a question in the chat box. Okay, so does anybody have, okay, Barry and Kathy, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Cheryl. Very interesting. My question was, what device did you use grounding yourself when you were sitting in front of the computer?
Well, actually, there was somebody locally who made some devices who doesn't produce them anymore, but your resource now is earthing.com, EARTHING.com. There are pads that you can, connect your feet to. That's a great resource. If you can't get outside, and if you're on the computer, you can still ground by using this device that will go into the earth.
Okay.
Could you repeat that, please?
Yes. Earthing. EARTH, like Mother Earth, ING.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Another question?
Another question. Go ahead.
When we're talking about getting outside, living in Arizona, I realize, these days I don't want to go out at all, but between 10 and 2, we stay inside, but during those other periods, how much time should we try to get outside? Just sit there.
Well, this is like there can be a science to it, but the short of it is if your skin just starts turning barely pink, that's enough. Now, if you're too hot and you're getting red because of that, that's not going to be a fair, a fair way to tell. But there are, excuse me, there are, I have some resources in some of my other material where that links to calculators where you can put in your latitude, your longitude, your elevation, the kind of surface that's near you, you know, whether it's beach or grass or whatever, and it'll tell you how much time you need, both before you get a sunburn and to get your daily requirement of vitamin D. So there's somebody that has figured this out, and I've got those links in some of my other materials, and so
Okay.
you can connect to that. So if you're kind of a data nerd, that's one thing that you can look at.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
But the easy way is, you know, just when your skin starts to get pink, then that's probably enough. And there are times of the year where even in Arizona, we cannot make vitamin D from the sun. So that's why we store it up. It's a fat soluble vitamin. And from, you know, in my location, it's like from October to March that the sun is too low in the sky. We don't get the right rays in order to make vitamin D. But, you know, someplace, you know, like the Hawaiian Islands or whatever, it's like you can do it 365 days a year. Yeah.
But in that period for us, those 6 months, is that when you take supplements?
You can take supplements, but you know your body stores it. If you've gotten exposed plenty during the other time of the year, you know we're designed to store it. Now there's so many things about vitamin D out there, you know, because it is so useful for so many things. And so some people may choose to take supplements just for reinforcements because, again, I go into this in more detail in some of my other material, but when you're exposed to the sun, it's the oils in your skin that have to be absorbed in order for you to absorb the vitamin D that you're making. And that can take up to 24 hours. So if you're washing with soap right after you've been outside, you're washing off all the constituents that are going to go into your skin and make vitamin D. And so you can't get vitamin D that way. So there's, you know, there's some tricks and tips to that. You know,
Okay.
number one is you can rinse off, but it won't rinse off the oils. And, you know, it depends on how much your body is exposed to. But that's just one reason why I think probably in our society, even if we're getting sun exposure, we have low vitamin D levels. That's a whole can of worms to talk about vitamin D. And I do it in some other material.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Mariana's hand is up. I'll unmute you. I'm clicking it.
I was just gonna ask something about vitamin D, but I could look in your other information.
Yeah.
It was just you could take too much through a supplement.
It's true. It's true. It's kind of the Goldilocks kind of hormone too. It's like if you take too much, you start to have detrimental effects. So that's why I have a hard time with all these recommendations of taking 5,000, 10,000 units of vitamin D for long periods of time. It's, yeah. So we're designed to make it, but again, in our civilization, a lot of times we don't allow our bodies to absorb it. Well, first of all, we don't allow ourselves to be out in the sun unexposed, and then we don't absorb it. So the natural way of getting vitamin D in our society needs a little more attention, and yeah, it's not just an automatic thing.
Okay.
So does everybody have what their first step is going to be? What you're going to do first? Which element you're going to use first? Yeah, clearing your nose, breathing through your nose. That's perfect. Yeah, for me, it was grounding. Yeah, connecting to the earth. I appreciate you all being here. Thank you for coming, listening, participating. Thank you for your questions. If there's not any more questions, we'll just close it up. And